Okay, welcome to another episode of Warriors Whiteboard Wednesday. Dai-Shihan Miller here from Warrior Concepts. You already know that if you follow along all the time, and if not, no worries. Right? Anyway, so this week, during this episode, we're going to continue on with this theme that we've been working with through the Ninja's Seishin Teki Kyoyo, or spiritual refinement, personal development, inner skills, those kind of things that really difficult to translate some of these things well into English. And I hesitate to use things like spiritual refinement because people get like all weird about it because they think I'm covering, I don't know, religion or whatever. Okay, so typically speaking, within this realm, within our training, if we use the term spiritual, what we're talking about is things that can't easily be pinned down as mental or psychological or whatever, right? They tend to be more, of course, everything is mental and psychological, but they're tied into more of an experiential thing rather than an academic knowledge. Okay. Anyway, so theme for this week is adapting under fire, and we're using inner awareness for self-defense. Okay. So we've been talking about a lot of these things throughout the previous weeks. Again, on this Seishin Teki. Sorry, I just need to bring up my notes here to make sure that I'm not in the wrong place. There we go. Okay. And so what we're looking at here is directing what we might call, well, what we will call Zanshin, right? This idea of an ever-present awareness inward, right? Again, we'll talk about this here in just a minute, where the way a lot of people look at Zanshin, it tends to be almost an externally directed thing. Later on, I will have a link after we get all this stuff processed. I'll have a link down in the description section. If you're on Facebook and all that, I'll try to get it into the comment section and whatnot. I'm building out a worksheet or more of a cheat sheet, a guide, where I'm going to split Zanshin into 5 or 6 types, right? 5 or 6 different perspectives on it, or how it gets used. Everything from kind of a combat, that lingering awareness, being in the moment and paying attention before, during, and after, all the way to it being a lifestyle. Okay. Again, we have to be careful where we're getting definitions of things, because there's things that are conventionally used throughout the martial arts. There's also things that are used specifically within the context of ninjutsu and the way Hatsumi Sensei, Takuma Sensei, our past masters have taught this stuff. And there's also a perspective that comes from the everyday Japanese person. Okay, I'll talk about that here in a bit as well. Okay, so there's 2 concepts that are absolutely related as it's connected to our art. Although when you look these things up, people can often get confused. I have students sometimes that we're working with Kamae, and it'll take them halfway to black belt until they get it into their head that stance is not an okay translation for Kamae. Right? And I know people use it all the time. High-level people use it all the time. And in all honesty, I don't care what word you use, as long as you and the person that you're conversing with know what you're talking about. However, you're talking to somebody like a student or somebody from outside our realm in a different martial art that might have the same, not the same word, right? But stance means something different, okay? And so this can really inhibit people. I had another marker around here. Well, let's see if I can make this one work. Okay, so the 2 concepts are Zanshin. If you have the Seishin Teki Kyoyo book that I just released, a week and a half ago, this is one of the core 11 concepts or core elements of the Seishin Teki. That book is by no means an exhaustive list of all the things that could be included in Seishin Teki, which is why right now, until I pull these bonuses away, one of the bonuses that I'm giving away with the book is an additional list of things that could have or would have been a part of Seishin Teki practice at different points in history or just collectively and whatnot, right? So Zanshin is Shin in this context is mind, right? And I know some people, they gets translated as heart, whatever. Okay, so in this context, it's mind. So there's a bunch of those things in the book: Mushin, Seishin, Zanshin, Heijoshin, Tenshin. You can get pretty exhausted. Okay, but Zanshin, right, is made up of two kanji. Right, I told you what shin was. Right, so this is shin is mind. Right, so shin, mind. Okay, actually it's a faculty of mind. It's what we're doing. Okay, and then this zan, right? It's a complex kanji. It's probably not going to be visible that easily, even if I draw it out here. So we'll just do it this way. Zan can mean to stay. It can mean to remain. It can mean to linger. Okay. It can even point to a sense of being constant or ever present. Okay? Constant, ever present. Right? And again, depending on where you get your information from, or where your Google search drops you, or hopefully you don't have the personality type that a lot of folks do. And I had this to some extent way back in the day, where I opened up a Japanese dictionary to pull a translation out, right, or a conversion from English to Japanese, and I would gravitate toward the smallest word, the easiest thing to say, or the easiest thing to remember. Doesn't always work so well. Okay, so Zanshin, be focusing on this from this context of this lingering awareness, this ever-present or constant awareness. We're paying attention as we're going through things, right? We're not on, obviously, not a cell phone, but this is not our day when shit's going on around us, okay? And so we're able to pick up on things, and not just when danger is present, okay? People often make comments that, like, I notice the smallest details, okay? Somebody will come in and, like one of the moms for one of the U students, and I'll say, did you color your hair? Or did you get your hair cut or whatever? And they may say, oh yeah, hey, thanks. Like a week ago, and my husband hasn't even noticed yet. And here the husband's bringing the kid to class, so I haven't seen her. Or they might say, no, I just brush it differently. It's in a different light, whatever. Okay. So, but it's how we train the mind to pay attention to things. Okay. In danger, obviously, we want to be paying attention to things as he's approaching, garnering information from him. When we're doing uke nagash, or there's a reason that within the context of the scrolls, it says to try to maintain 3 points of contact with his body, right? Because you're gathering information. This is not all about control. Sometimes it's about getting the information that tells you how to go about controlling somebody, okay? But in the context of what we're going to be doing today, and we'll talk about this more, we're going to tune Zanshin inwardly. Okay, self-awareness, okay? That kind of thing, right? Kamai is made up of two kanji, right? Actually gets split right here, right? So kama, right, which is, right, some folks are having a problem with pronunciation, right? So, this is kame, it's all kinds of weird freaking things, right? So kamai, right? Not close for English, and I accept it from students, is kamai, right? Almost like spelling out Comeyeye, right? Kamai, right? But, right, kama, right? This means to posture, to build, to structure. Right? There's a bunch of other things that go along with it. And then this right? This is actually a kana, a Japanese kana script instead of the kanji. And it's a word modifier, right? Most Japanese base words, not most, but a lot of Japanese base words, Japanese is a verb-based language, where English is a noun-based language, right? So we have subject, object, and then we have words that modify that, and then we have these words called verbs that tell us what's happening, right? In Japanese, everything modifies the verb. What's the most important in Japanese language is what's going on, what's the action that's happening, right? So A, this part here, right, is what modifies this grammatically to make it a form or a state, right? This is the big thing here. People will often, and I know there's a couple of martial arts out there that use the term kamai, but they approach it from the perspective of a dachi, right? Dachi is the Japanese word for stance, okay? And so dachi, and so kamai are not dachi. Dachi is the position of the body, right? It's almost entirely body centric, right? Kamai is very, very adaptive, right? The tie-in here, well, we'll get to this here very, very quickly, right? So let's start off with a problem, right? A problem that this is not Dai-Shihan's opinion. This is not Jeff's, whatever. Okay, I'm going to pull directly from one of the Takamatsu Sensei quotes that I have. Okay, the essence of ninjutsu is to know what cannot be known and to see what cannot be seen. Right. This flies directly in the face and contradicts a very, very common and predominant perspective or belief system that the greater percentage of martial artists tend to lean into, because martial artists tend to be physical, practical, pragmatic, right? Problem solvers, that kind of thing, right? And so they tend to be if I can't see it, taste it, touch it, feel it, whatever, then it doesn't exist or it's not important enough to take a look at, okay? Ninjutsu has always been the black sheep of the martial arts family, right? So what we're looking at is the stuff that you don't even know you don't know, okay? So if you caught this week's Kuden, the podcast on Monday, I ran everybody through a definition of mastery, right? And we looked at the realm of the unknown, the realm of the known, that kind of stuff, and how what we're really doing is diving in and learning about and being able to see and understand and to know what most people either dismiss, don't think is worth knowing, right? It's a bunch of woo-woo bullshit kind of stuff, or they don't even know they don't know it, right? They don't even know it exists, okay? So this in and of itself directly relates to Zanshin awareness, right? This idea of we're always on the lookout for things, right? The things that kind of stand out, right? As opposed to assuming or guessing our way through life, okay? It also directly relates to the ninja strategic approach to self-protection, okay? So again, just as a reminder, this ties directly into last week's Kuden as well, right? And the book, right? The Seishin Teki Kyoyo, and principles like Heijoshin, which means calm mind. I don't want to say ordinary, but like a common kind of mind. People often get that confused with Zanshin, but Heijoshin is this awareness that, or this level of mind or awareness that goes on under extreme pressure, right? Like combat veterans or combat operators, police officers who work in high crime areas and whatnot, where shit's always happening, right? You just get desensitized to it, right? Where you're able to operate in areas where most people would be like filling their underwear with things that the body doesn't need anymore, right? Fudoshin, immovable mind, that's not being drug around by yours or somebody else's emotions, those kind of thing. And again, this Zanshin is lingering awareness. And again, I'm working on a worksheet that I'll make sure that gets put up. Sign up for it, get the worksheet. And it's just different types of Zanshin to help expand what you're working on. Okay, so again, this is just an expansion on those things. Okay, so this leads us to this reality, right? That most martial artists only think of Zanshin as external awareness. Okay, so paying attention to stuff that matters, paying attention to what he's doing, I'm paying attention after it looks to most people like the whole thing is over, because what's he doing after he ran off? What's he doing? Right? I mean, I could win the fight and he could run out of the place but he could also run to his truck and come back with a shotgun. Right? So, but most people drop their guard afterwards because I won. Maybe, okay, we can win a battle and lose the war. All right. So, what I want to do during this training is to introduce the concept that emotions drive movement. Right. We're going to take a look at the physiological response or connection between the emotions and emotional states that we could be in when the attack starts happening, and what that does to the body. Okay, and so this is another way to kind of train Zanshin. We're just going to turn it inwardly. Okay, and so here's where things tie into Kamai. Okay, because Kamai is connected to this thing. Okay, so let me tell you a story. A bunch of years ago, I don't even know that I was a Shodan yet, and I have a friend in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, and I used to go up and he would host seminars or just go up and do things. And I think my original teacher in this art, Stephen Hayes, was doing a seminar up there. I think, don't quote me on it, but either way, I was up there for the seminar, and we had one of the evenings we had a dinner get together at a local restaurant. Okay, and Cord, my friend, who's also in the art, had invited one of his very close friends, who is a native Japanese woman. She happened to be living and working in Toronto. She worked for the Japanese embassy there, right? So she was very fluent in English, right? Very well educated, that kind of thing. And so I thought that I would take advantage of the fact that I had somebody sitting right next to me, right? We're having this conversation, and I would take this opportunity to ask someone what a very common word that keeps popping up in the art means to an everyday person who's not connected to the martial arts at all. Her only connection was through my friend, but she didn't practice. She didn't do anything, right? So I wanted to do that. But see, there was also this little bit of doubt as well, because, my teachers at the time, right? My teacher was Anglo, right? English speaking. It's not that I didn't trust him, but we should all have a healthy sense of doubt, right? Respectfully applied, but a healthy sense of doubt to make sure that we're not just becoming blind disciples and we're just going to fall for anything that comes out of somebody's mouth because of the color of their belt or their authoritative state or how eloquent they sound when they, whatever, right? So what I said was, what does Kamai mean, right? And the first words out of her mouth were, what Kamai means to me is, which now tells me, shit, now things are subjective, or she was really kind of diving into, like, when the word gets used, like, why would this get used as opposed to dachi, right? If it's just a posture or a stance, then why one over the other, okay? And so she said, what Kamai means to me is to be aware of your condition. Wow, okay. So that goes way beyond body, mind, spirit, attitude, right? All these things that could be used in here to represent this thing, right? But to be aware of your condition, oh shit, that's this turned internally, right? And there's this lingering awareness. So that's where I want to go with this today. I want to take a look at this idea of using our emotional state in a high stress environment, in a bad situation, to determine fight response, to determine the strategy. Now, there's a whole bunch of techniques that can fit in any one of these things, but what we're looking at is kind of doing this backwards from the way most people do things. Okay? The other truth about martial artists is that martial artists tend to focus on the ideal, and what I mean by that is They think that they're always going to be calm, they're going to be composed, they're going to have the best technique. Because they've got all this training, they're automatically going to be the winner. They've got the advantage. Okay, and that may be true in a one-on-one kind of thing where they've done everything they could to make the fight fair, right? Or you're in a given context of people that grew up like you and whatever, right? But my experience as a police officer and a bodyguard and whatnot, a lot of things that people think tend to not be true. Okay, tend to not be. I'm not saying it doesn't fit their experience, but for instance, when someone says, "I can't remember a time that anybody ever grabbed me in a fight, or I ever grabbed anybody else in a fight," talking about these, clothing grabs, wrist grabs, whatever, right? But one of my gigs as a corporate workplace violence consultant, I was hired by an attorney in Texas who was representing a nurse who was attacked on the job in an emergency room, right? And so this guy, she was 4'11", change maybe, right? This guy was like 6'7", and he came in looking for drugs, and when he was told no, he went apeshit, right? And she was running away from him. Well, he's 6'7", longer legs. It's going to take her more steps than him. Caught her very, very quickly. Grabbed her by the arm, right, down here by the wrist and whatnot. And between him yanking her back and her trying to yank away, right, she was trying to run for an exit. Between those two things, so on this side, left side, separated her shoulder and all the muscles down this side of her torso, right? So she's maimed for life, right? Nothing is connected. She's had surgeries and all that, but nothing functions well, right? That's just one example from my experience that this person has a limited experience, okay? Also have experiences where people think they were getting into a fist fight, and the next thing you know, a weapon suddenly comes out of nowhere, okay? And the whole situation shifts. This is why we focus on what we focus on, and not just we're picking the best fight system. Because sometimes the best fight is the one not fought. Right? Need you to know that. So anyway, we're coming at this from this perspective of where this is combined, where it's this being aware of your condition. Okay, and again, quoting from Takama Sensei, right? The essence of ninjutsu is to know what cannot be known to the average person, right? And to see what cannot be seen. This is not a what do you call them, a finite objective kind of thing. Like if it can't be known, like how do you know? It's not that kind of thing, right? It's what most people believe is unknowable, or they don't know anything about it, right? Or they only rely on, like, their entire reality experience and decision making is based on what they can physically see. Hence why they're surprised when they think that they're in a fist fight with somebody. Next thing you know, this guy pulls a knife or a gun or grabs a hammer or whatever, and the whole fight dynamic changes. Or two of his friends come running in, right? So the more that we can know, the more that we can see, better off we're going to be, okay? So what we're going to do with this session is we're going to take a look at 5 tactical responses that are actually emotion-based, okay? So what we're ultimately looking at is feelings or emotions where we're either like driven to move forward, driven to retreat, those kind of things. I will talk a little bit about higher order emotions, right? Anger and fear, and well, fear is on both sides, right? But it's not as cut and dry. Okay, so when we talk about happiness, we talk about anxiety, we talk about anger, sadness, those kind of things. Those are very, very complex. They're not base level feelings that are wrapped up in attraction, either because I like it, or attraction because I'm going to fucking kill it, or repulsion, right? tastes bad. Well, either way, I want that to go away. I don't want to have to deal with it, or neutral kind of things. Okay, so it ultimately all comes to that. Just this was for my own reference here and whatnot. These are just the kanji for the 5 elements, right? Earth, water, fire, wind, void, and then what's in the parentheses if you're keeping track of all that stuff. I couldn't do W twice for water and wind, so I just put a little lowercase d there for that. But what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at these. We're going to take a look at it from an emotional state, what a tactical, might be nice if I could spell, what a tactical choice might be, the tactical choice might be, and then the physical action, right? And again, this is a place to get folks started if this is new, or a reminder if you've bumped into this before. And if you're one of the folks that are like, this is not the way they do it in Japan or whatever, by all means, hold on to that belief system, and the rest of this is going to be pointless, or it's just going to, I don't know, help you validate that, I'm just teaching something that's not really Bujinkan, or it's not really Ninjutsu, or it's not really, okay? So one thing as a Zanshin that we need to be aware of, we're talking about emotions here today, okay? But this is also mental state and belief systems, okay? Being aware of mine and how they might help or hinder, okay? And one of those things that we could be exploring is something called biases, okay? People like to try to keep it really, really simple, bias, which means you're racist or you're whatever, right? But there's a type of bias called anchoring bias. And what that means is the first way that you encountered something is the way that you measure everything else, but that's the right way. Okay, that's why you cut the grass a certain way with a certain pattern, so everything else is wrong. That's the only right way. And the mind will spin all kinds of reasons why that's the only right way. Maybe it is, but maybe it isn't. Okay, so we have to be careful of these things so that we're actually operating from a position of clarity. Okay. Anyway, so let's do these things. All right. So what I'm going to be looking at here, I'll give you the strategy, and then we'll take a look at these 3 elements. Okay. So the first strategy is to hold your ground. Okay. Hold your ground. And so this is the strength here, or the advantage is in using strength and structure. Okay. So this is best used for when we're calm. Let me use a contrasting color, right? So we're calm, right? We could also be we're centered, or we're kind of, it's a centered mental state, right? We're confident, we're calm. There's a firm resolve, or it just could be, this calmness could be associated with a sense of just being neutral, right? You ever have somebody say, you okay? Right? How you doing? And, you do a quick scan of yourself and you're like, I'm good. And they're like, you don't sound like you're good. I'm not good. Right? I'm here, right? I'm not good. I'm not good, but things are okay, right? But if they keep asking, right, that can shift your state really, really quickly, right? But the fact that you're not like yay or pissed off or sad or whatever, then, because people have a hard time dealing with neutral because they don't know how to fit it into something. Well, it doesn't fit in anything. It's neutral, okay? But we're calm, okay? So in this context, right, we're unmoved, right, emotionally, okay? When we're that way, our body can stay strong, it can stay stable, it can be leverage-based, that kind of thing, right? So the tactical choice here is what I'm talking about, right? We just hold our ground. Right? Not moving, okay? Now, this is not stubbornness, okay? Stubbornness is where there's a drive, to evade or put some distance or whatever, but I'm not moving, okay? it's on one level, it's not living authentically because there's something different going on in the head and the heart than we're trying to project out here. Okay. The cool thing about this is that we're calm because remember, we're talking self-defense, right? So there's somebody putting some pressure on us. We don't perceive them as a threat. We don't perceive them as danger. It doesn't matter if their hands are up and they're threatening to bust us in the face, or they grabbed a weapon and whatever. There's either something about us and our perceived advantage, or our read on them. Right? Anybody that's like my age, maybe close to it, but there used to be a TV show on, I can't remember the name of the show itself, but one of the characters' names was Urkel, right? Tall, skinny black kid, right? Had these big old suspenders, right? Snorted a whole lot and everything. Talk like this, right? If somebody like that came up and threatened to hit you, you would probably fight the urge to laugh more than be worried, okay? Does that mean he can't hit you? No. Does that mean that I got this? Or my 5-year-old grandson being all, upset or whatever. Not that he's this way at all, but if he threw a temper tantrum and decided he was going to swing and hit grandpa, I know I can put my hand on his forehead and let him swing away, and he can't hit me. And then I can just say, look, you need to stop. You need, right? I'm not going to do a big old flying spinning back kick, Taekwondo style, stick my toe in his eye and flip him across the room. Okay. Now I know some people might do that because a threat's a threat. No. Okay. So what's the physical action, right? The physical action is applying. When I say strength in ninjutsu, in taijutsu, strength is based on positioning and leverage, not on physical muscle strength, right? Because you can't be relaxed and be this way at the same time. Okay. So the physical action is, again, we hold our ground, but it's applying leverage, right? Strength through positioning, okay? Those kind of things, okay? If we were to do a conventional martial arts high block, this is in our mod 1 kind of thing, right? You can do it from Shizen. But if you really understand it, you understand how to keep your body relaxed, fire the muscles that are necessary to hold that position and whatnot. You should be able to do that against somebody twice your size, way bigger, way stronger, and you can do it on one leg, okay? Because you ultimately need to be able to step or kick at the same time, okay? So we don't have to take up a big old braced kind of position to do the block and whatnot. You can just hold, okay? So really cool stuff. All right. So next one. All right. So this one is for times when we're tense, but we're still thinking clearly. Right. So there's some tension going on. Oops. Tension. Right. We're still thinking clearly, but there's a sense of defensiveness going on. Okay. And what this means is we either strategically know that we need some time and space because the way this guy's moving, I'm not sure what he's going to come in with. I'm not, whatever. So it's causing some hesitation. It's causing a need for extra space, which gives me more time, or more time that tells me I need to be a little bit farther away, right? Or there's this idea of tension, okay? The arms the limbs are coming up, right? A little bit higher. Or wherever his weapons are, the limbs are just instinctively coming up. If we're in this state right here, the limbs don't move unless we're telling him, just calm down. Okay. In the other one, body starts to blade a little bit more, limbs start to come up, especially to cover life-sustaining systems. This is all reflexive. This is all hardwired and a part of the natural human defensive response system. Okay, so again, tension, a little bit of defensiveness, right? So the tactical choice here, I talked about this, is defensive use of distance, angling, countering, right? So what I want to use is some long range, doesn't have to be really, really long, right? Long range defensive angling, okay? And positioning, right? So I'm going to go out of my way to remove targets, okay? And so if we could see, for those of you who have been around for a while, this is not going to sound alien or foreign or out of context or whatever. There's two sides to our training, okay? In some realms, in some context, those two realms are known as the dragon realm and the tiger realm. In some, they're known as Migi Hidari or Sa-Yu, right? Sa-Yu is just this old way of saying left and right. Hidari Migi is a more modern way, right? Left, right. Hidari, left, Migi, right. So while at a very superficial level, left and right does mean left and right, right? They're just other ways to point to the same thing that the dragon realm and the tiger realm point to, which is just this old imported Chinese kind of system. So the dragon realm, when you're doing your techniques from that perspective, you're in absolute control. You can be more graceful. You got more fine motor skill going on, all that kind of stuff, right? You're in control, okay? So techniques done that way look like the way Hatsumi Sensei and the master teachers do, right? So you're leading with this calm. There might be a little bit of attention, but everything is very calculated. It's very controlled. You've got control of this whole thing, okay? The tiger realm, just the opposite, okay? There's more slamming, banging. There might be a few extra moves. There's more ferociousness, or there's more emotive side to it, right? So a Seigan from the tigers or from the dragon side is going to look very picturesque, right? But a Seigan no Kamae from the tiger side might look, this way, okay? In the Koto school, and if anybody has Hatsumi Sensei's original quest video on Koto-ryu, when they're covering the kamae in the Kudai-dori section, right? 5 kamae, it's actually more than 5 kamae, right? Based on the same list, right? But the first 2 kamae are Migi Seigan no Kamae and Hidari Seigan no Kamae. Okay? Most people translate that to a right side forward Seigan no Kamae and a left side forward Seigan no Kamae. But then Bobi no Kamae is listed all by itself, but Bobi, so we're only doing one side forward. We don't have to learn it this way, okay? What else is in there? Hoko no Kamae is in there, and Hirachi Monji no Kamae is in there, right? But neither one is listed as right or left, okay? So the purists who just read the list, that's what they see. But what if we were to look at that list, and because of the expense of paper, right, how long it took to make and how expensive it was, and ink, right, which you usually ground yourself and made yourself, you might buy it from somebody else, but now you've got this extra expense, right? And understanding that the scrolls are written in a type of shorthand because of space and availability, and it's supposed to be a reminder later after you've learned the lessons, right, like crib notes. What if Seigan no Kamae was listed Migi Hidari as a hint or as an example of how you're supposed to see the other 4 on the list? Migi Bobi, Hidari Bobi, Migi Hirachi Monji, Hidari Hit. How do you do that? Well, 1 foot up, but how else could it be modified? But if we understand that Migi and Hidari are just another way of approaching the dragon tiger paradigm I just gave you, a can of worms just opens up, right? And things change quite a bit, right? But either way, right? So here, right? So because of the tension and because there's this emotive feel where my body's already doing stuff, okay? So if I am aware of my condition, there's certain tactics and techniques or strategies that better fit what my body is already doing, right? We'll talk about that related to the spinal column and how that relates to the way the body moves in general, right? In just a bit. But so there's tension, long range action, and whatnot. Okay. So the physical action here is stepping back. Okay. We're going to create space. Okay. You know any techniques that hold ground? You know any techniques that step away? You know any techniques that when you learned it, it was like, shit, I got this, dude. There's no concern, there's no whatever. Right? As a matter of fact, I can already see you laying on the ground. But if you need for reality to catch up, by all means, throw the punch. Okay. But this one, we've got a butt ton of these. Okay. So the question is are we stepping back, or are we stepping to this angle as a tactical, strategic movement where I'm in control of everything? It doesn't matter what my freaking emotions are. I'm probably right here, right? But I'm going to surgically take this guy apart, which is what everybody fantasizes about, right? Okay. Are we doing that, right? Or are we moving that way because we need to, like, if this guy touches me, if he stays in control, this is not going to go well for me. So what I need to do is stretch this guy out. I need to break his strength. I need to break his speed, right? I need to make it so that even if he touches me, there's a diminished bit of power, right? Typically, nobody is taught that, right? So there's just this assumption that, everything's going to go well for me, okay? But this is strategic thinking. This is the tactician. This is the person that's like, okay, this guy's bigger, he's faster, whatever. So I'm going to stretch him out, cause him to waste a shot, while simultaneously closing off all my targets, making his next attack even harder than the first one, while simultaneously moving to an angle that opens up everything on him, right? So I have my choice, right? I have my choice of targets, okay? It's just a different way of thinking, okay? So we could be slightly nervous, but we're still rational, right? We create distance to stretch the opponent's structure, right? Weaken their attack before we re-enter, right? With a committed counter. Think Ichimonji no kata, okay? So just a very different way of doing this. Now, if I borrow a lesson from the Gyokko-ryu, and some of you guys probably have some of these things that are floating around where people like brought things together, translated them into English. Not everything has all the information, okay? In the Gyokko-ryu, we have this concept of the Kihon-appo, okay? And it's not the 8 techniques that most people think, okay? Because the Kihon-appo, the concept comes from the Gyokko-ryu, but a list of 8 techniques, no. Even the things that we know of in today's world as the Kihon-appo, right? We've got Ichimonji no kata, Jumonji no kata, Hicho no kata, right? Collectively known as the Sanden Kamai, therefore the Sanden Kata, right? Which means they're all reflections of the exact same thing. Oh, shit, how does that work? Well, that's for something else, right? But you need to be able to do all of them on both sides, okay? Well, okay, now do we still have 3 or do we have 6, okay? And then the Torite Gata, right? So 8 minus 3, we would have 5 in the standard model in today's world. Now, in the Gyokko-ryu, the Torite Gata consists of 10 example models, and almost half of those are just Omote-gyaku. Shit, well, that's different, right? So, but what we get from the Gyokko-ryu is the concept of Kihon-appo, which is a training strategy where you're making 8 variations of every technique you learn, and then you make 8 variations of that, and you make 8 variations of that. Okay, we'll come back to this one because this variation model is really important. There's also the Kihon-appo that are 8 pillars or 8 areas of study. Ganho, studying how the eyes work, yours, theirs, how they can be damaged, how they can be tricked, right? Different levels of use and how you can get better at using your eyes and all that, right? Hoho or Soho, Budo, right? Use of the legs. It's another one. Shuho, right? Which is hand method, hand skills, but it involves the entire arm, that kind of thing, right? So all these things, right? Okay. But there's also the key on a bow principle that I was talking about with the 8 variations, okay, it's written. There are 8 possible lines of attack that the attacker could come in on. But how do most people train? Nose to nose, toe to toe, like they see sport fights or like they see high school fights or bar fights. Okay? But somebody who's attacking you, why would they not blindside you? Why would they not sucker punch you? Right? So can we do our technique, any given technique, ichimonji no kata, right? Based on an attack coming from any angle. Now it's going to be really difficult to do it from outside here until you get that ability where you can pass the 5th dan test. But training beyond that 5th dan test should absolutely cover not just the angles that you can see, but the angles that you can't see. So there's 5 angles, or I'm sorry, at least 8 angles. When we say 8, remember 8 happo can also be translated as infinite. So 8 is the minimum. 8 angles to execute your technique on, because that's how he's coming, right? 8 conditions under which you would choose that technique, 8 ways to break that technique, right? Or if somebody's trying to use that on you, how you beat it, okay? So can we do every technique we have also? From a calm, I'm in control, I got this thing. From an, oh shit, I need some timing, distance, I need to stretch this guy out. And each, okay? This is what Hatsumi Sensei, for a long time, way back in the day, used to always say he could write an entire book on just one technique. Because if you ran one technique through this Kyonapo principle from these different angles, emotional, environmental, attack angle, all those kind of things, right? You wouldn't need any other techniques because you would rediscover every other technique on every other scroll in every other lineage and a shit ton more. Okay? Again, isn't it a good thing we're only doing emotions today? Okay? So we've got this, right? So we call, in the dojo, we call this a water response because if we think of the way the ocean moves and pulls back, creates a wave and whatnot, right? It pulls away from the shore, gathers up all this power, and then throws it back, right? So where this is leverage and strength of positioning, the key dynamic here for this one is power, right? We're doing a tactical power kind of thing because we're outmaneuvering this guy, and it's like a baseball or a cricket baller just winding up and like just giving it all we got kind of thing, right? Give it all she's got, pop. All right, so next one. I mean, we could do lineages and how the lineages kind of lean into these things. I don't have enough time for that today. Okay. All right. Next one down here, what we would typically call fire, right? So this is best suited for today's example, right? High adrenaline, fast response. Okay? High adrenaline, fast response. What I mean by that is I got to get him before he gets me. Okay. But here's this thing, right? If we were talking about complex emotions like fear, right? I'm afraid. Right? There's that kind of stuff going on. What is fear doing to me? Because for some people, and against certain types of attacks or dangerous situations, fear is going to make me do this, which is this one. But if you know anybody, or have you ever been in a situation where somebody who has been afraid moves into it, right? They got it. There's that fear that if they don't shut it down first, they're going to lose. Okay. So what we would call this is a direct, committed, right? Preemptive attack, right? So the tactical choice here is preemptive engagement. Okay. What that means is you don't even wait until the fist comes. Okay. That shoulder starts to move like a fist is coming. Bang. Okay. We hit it. Right. So again, high adrenaline, fast response mode. But again, could be fear, could be anxiety, could be that whole thing where if I don't get him first, right, or the door's on the other side of him, and it's a go for it kind of thing, right? So, but what's common with all of these is that there's this feel that's produced by a surge of adrenaline that's pushing you or pulling you into action, right? So if you feel that surge, right, you can harness it, right, by attacking first. So here we're using speed, a different type of power, but intent. It's that committed, go for it, just get in there, right? So most people in martial arts, I think, are familiar with this because, well, that's like the karate way of doing things. That's the way I fight all the time anyway. Okay, cool, right? So bear with me with this, right? People will tend to gravitate to fight systems that fit how they typically respond under pressure. And they see that as, well, that's me. So that's best for me. So I'm going to go to that fight thing. Okay. But what if the condition or the situation that we're in, that's not the best response? Or I train for this because that's how I normally am when fights happen. And next thing you know, I got J. Cool Jackwagon here with a freaking butcher knife and his friends coming at me with a hammer. And I don't know what this guy's doing over here. And all of a sudden, the whole body is just doing something different, or the brain locks up, or whatever. Okay, so we'll talk about this here as we go. But the whole idea here is right, we're going to use these aggressive tactics, right? We could be surging in with heavy strikes, those kind of things. Okay, again, we could be talking about lineages. I just don't want to move in that direction at the moment. Okay, so this fire thing, right? Boom. There's no windup. This is, while the dynamic here, right, the physical action is speed, it's interception, right? It's preemptive movement. It's take the fight to him, right? So it's forward moving. Forward moving. This one here, stepping, create space, is more of a backward moving, right? Because when we're in this defensiveness kind of situation, the body's already, right? The body's telling on what's going on the inside, right? That's another way to look at kamae, right? Everybody is in kamae all the time. There is a bored no kamae. There is an anxious no kamae. There is a lusting kamae, right? Because you're just doing certain things. Your body tells what's going on in the head and the heart, right? So in this case, you know, he's doing things and we feel that. A lot of us know what that feels like, right? It's almost like something behind us is pushing, or it's like magnets, right? We're just being pulled into this. But this is the magnets reverse, where same things are happening. So as he's coming in, we almost feel like his pressure and his intensity is pushing us back. Must not mean that. I never do that. Okay, no. You've never done that up to this point against the kind of threats you're used to dealing with. That's not the same as I never do that. It's not the same. Okay? And there's a problem with thinking that way, which is why we're doing the damn class. Okay? Because people think that these are options. And they could be if we're in the dragon realm or we're Migi side of training, where we're in control. You can pick and choose whatever the hell you want, just like in the dojo. You can train any way you want. But we all know there's certain levels of students and there's certain practitioners and whatnot, whether they're in our dojo or we run into them in Japan or whatever. Hey, why don't you go train with him? Nah, I'm good. And we kind of blow it off or whatever. But we know what's going on the inside, right? I'm good. Okay. Or the reason why a lot of people, when teachers looking for an uke, right, where they go, because they like doing techniques to other people, but they don't like to experience the pain and whatnot of it coming in. Nobody likes to experience pain. If they do, that's a different kind of appointment that needs to be made, right? But some people, right, since he's looking around for an uke, not only am I going to get it over with, but I can't learn 50, 60, 70% of the technique until I have it applied to me, because I can't see inside skin bags. Okay. So got these. Next one. This is when we're going to call it, there's a sense of uncertainty, hesitation, could be lack of clarity. Like, I don't know what this guy's up to quite yet or whatever, right? And sometimes these things kind of overlap a little bit, right? Because these two right here are definitely yo or yang kind of things, right? Whatever you throw at me, I'm going to handle and I'm going to crush it, okay? And nothing personal, but you just need to be stopped, right? This guy down here, definitely yang, right? Boom, go get it, right? This one, more of an yin or yin, right? Receiving, that kind of thing, right? So same thing over here, right? So here we've got this idea of what I call uncertainty, hesitation, like I said, lack of clarity, or we could be suspicious, like not quite sure what this guy's up to just yet, right? So uncertainty, what was the word I just used? Hesitation, there we go. Hesitation. But this can also be the feeling, like I put defensiveness here. This one here is that get them first, right? That we just feel like we're drawing in. This one here can also be that whoa, hey. I don't want to even be a part of this. Okay, so this is a what do we call that? Not hesitancy. This is a avoidance. Right? I don't want to play. No. Hey, I don't know what the problem is, but I don't want it. Okay, so we see this in all kinds of situations, right? Somebody starts barking orders or yelling or whatever. Whoa, hey, what the hell? Or somebody says something to you. So we do this stuff all the time, right? Sometimes people are yelling and screaming, and they take a breath, and you go, "You finished? No? Okay, well, go ahead and finish." But you're not letting it affect you. This one, right? Whoa, hey, what the hell? And then I'm listening, but I'm also listening. They embellish something, they lied or whatever. So when I come back, guess what I'm targeting? Okay. Anything they say that's true, I can deflect that kind of stuff. If it's true, I'll fix it later. But at the moment, I'm listening for shit you're making up. Because when I attack back, that's your weak points. Okay? Most people just sling shit back and forth. Oh, yeah, but. Okay? Okay? This one, they go to open their mouth. Hey, every day you say the same shit. Get out of my office. Okay? This one, you know what? Do your thing. Okay? I'll be back. Okay? Go yell at somebody else. Okay? Of course, this guy could also say. Right? But with this one here, there's things are either too chaotic or there's not a lot of clarity, that kind of thing, right? So when we're unsure of his next move, right? When we're pretty sure that if he touches me, I'm gonna die or I'm gonna break, okay? So now, evasive movement, evasive angling, flanking maneuvers, we could be using feints, we could be using verbal deception, those kind of things. But we're coming at him from different angles. There's kind of this last second tricky timing, right? So the tactical choice here is to evade, right? Somebody's yelling and screaming and whatnot, deflect that. Whoa, wait, not today, okay? So the tactical choice is evasion, flanking maneuvers, okay? Move to his blind spots. Either way, get off that freaking targeting line that's where he's strong, that's where he's fast, that's where, right? So if I can't stretch him out to break it, I'm just going to slip by. And this is a Gyokoryu thing. Togakure uses it, those kind of things where one of the primary combat principles in the Gyokoryu is to circle behind the attacker. You get off his freaking, right? You get off his strength and speed and whatnot, right? And you flank, get behind him, because we don't operate so well this way, right? So, and then the physical action here, like I said, is to do flanking maneuvers, right? Avoid his power lines, those kind of things, right? Okay. So it's almost like throwing a wet blanket on a burning man, okay? That kind of thing, okay? And then This last one, this one's difficult, right? Because I'm going to give you a way to look at this, but this one's really, really open. Void. And void's a really bad example. It's like Zen emptying your cup, and then you're going to fill it up again. Well, like, what if some of the stuff in the cup is stuff I want to keep? Right? Right? It's devoid. Void, this ku is devoid of a predefined shape. So it could be the thinking and creative juices assessing the mental qualities, that kind of stuff, determining which one to use. But in this case, it could also be we've got this self-conscious, not in a bad way, right? This knowing thyself kind of thing. And the first thing we do is we're paying attention to what our body's already doing. What's the internal wiring? What is the amygdala sending to the hypothalamus, right? So these signals start happening and the cells start changing and the electrical, the nervous system starts doing its thing, right? What's already happening, right? This goes back to that lesson that's in the scrolls of the Tagagi-Yoshu Review, right? The secret for always having the right technique at the right time. And the answer is never do a technique that's not already working. So instead of arbitrarily choosing, am I going to do Doko no Kamai or Seiga no Kamai or Jimonji no Kamai? Am I going to do Gyoko Yu stuff? Am I going to do Koppo Jutsu? Am I going to do Jutai Jutsu? What the hell is the body already doing, right? So we lead by being authentic, okay? So this is best suited for when we've got this awareness going on, right? Of both our internal state and their changing actions. So if they're adapting a lot, okay? In all honesty, in all reality, and this is something we're going to work on during the Friday masterclass, we're going to pick a technique and we're going to do it under each influence, right? So we can work that, get close to that 8, right? We'll probably end up doing half of it, right? And then what we're going to be doing is taking a look at the reality that we could start in one place emotionally in a fight, right? I could decide I'm going to hold my ground. All of a sudden, that fist comes faster than I expected, and that causes me to move this way. And I may be in that for a move or 3, right? Or I may shift from that, and it's too difficult for him to, or for me to stay away from, because he's faster, he's taller. So human body doesn't back up nearly as fast and far as it moves forward. So I can only back up so many steps before somebody taller or faster will overrun me. So I may start off here, right? Next thing you know, I'm here, and next thing you know, I'm slipping by to get behind him, and then all of a sudden there's that imperative need, like it's right there, right? So what we do? We went earth, water, wind, fire. That's all this stuff here. Okay, so the emotional state here is not really an emotional state per se, right? It's the strategic thinking and awareness, right? Okay, so tactical choice is creative. It's creative engagement based on assessment of them, the situation, and me, right? And then what's my physical action? Physical action is what's the most appropriate, what's the most authentic for the shit that's going on, okay? So here's why I was making those little vocal intonations when I talk about somebody just arbitrarily picking and choosing, or the average person gravitates toward one and assumes that's me, right? This guy really leans into the Aikido-Jiu-Jitsu that Steven Seagal is famous for, or karate, or the kind of mixed martial arts where you just like fuck it in there, just bow, right? He's banging off of each other, right? Okay. This guy, again, remember there's thinking and all that kind of stuff, and you're in tune with him. There's this back and forth interplay. These people tend to gravitate toward judo, jiu-jitsu, wrestling, those kind of things, right? These people here, Other types of wrestling, sumo, right, is a big part of this kind of thing where you're just kind of using strength and maneuverability, right? This one tends to lean into Aikido and other types of softer forms of jiu-jitsu, those kind of things. These people here, right, they're like, fighting never solved anything, and they but they could also become spies too, right? So, or negotiators or whatever, where they're not going to directly fight, right? They're going to outthink the person, okay? And then they're going to push resources forward. 5 tactical responses based on emotive response. Here's the practical application. If I'm applying correct Zanshin, correct every day, kamai, right? Being aware of one's condition, not just a pose, okay? One of the options I have, a really good tactical option, is to already do what the body is doing. Here's one reason to do that. Not just because the emotions are driving, but because of what the emotions and that energy does to the body, okay? When we're under these different emotional states, you're under this state right here, and you're going to move forward, or you're in that kind of thing. This center tends to, right, that solar plexus, you see people do this stuff all the time, right? Okay? That leads, okay? But we're under this tension, this thing here, the core is really, really tight. We get that butterfly in the gut feeling, those kind of things. And what's causing us to rock off the heels is because this is tightening up. The core muscles are tightening to try to pull the rib cage down over the life-sustaining systems and to cover things up. The shoulders roll in, the jaw drops to kind of protect the neck and all that, right? People, right? The untrained people do this kind of stuff, right? But it's the body covering that stuff up, okay? So the emotive state fires certain muscle combinations. But before we go into these, I'm not doing all these things today, but before you even look at all those things, if we just look at the spine, okay, there are these major breakpoints in the spine. They just happen to coincidentally line up with things called chakra, okay? So when these certain things happen, this, okay, this just locked up. This just locked up, right? So when the spine gets, when certain of these get locked and other ones are open, we move well in certain directions. But when this is happening, forward movement's not easy. Back movement's not easy. What is easy is side-side movement. If we look at our Seigan and things like that, and tighten up your core, this kind of movement is easy. People say, I'm moving backward and forward, but that's relative to him. Relative to my own body, I'm moving side-side. Okay? This stuff, wrestling and all that kind of stuff, or the grappling or the holding, right? That's more of an up-down, holding, controlling, those kind of things, right? This, surprised or just trying to stay away and trying to make sense out of the chaos and whatnot, way up here, right? So we're up off our legs, we're up off the feet. We're not so grounded. So we're going to be moving more up here. So this is more of a circular kind of movement. And it's because of what's happening to the spine. Okay, if we understand that, then we have an even greater reason to listen to our body with what it's doing if the emotions are in charge. If we're anywhere else but here, or anywhere else but here. Because the body's going to work well in certain directions based on the way the spine's being affected, and not so well in other directions. And the last thing we want to be doing when we're trying to save our life is to be fighting ourselves while trying to fight him. But that's my opinion. You can do what you want. Okay? So we're going to take a look at some scenario-based kind of stuff during Friday's coaching call. I don't have that page quite set up yet, so about 30 minutes or so after we're all done here, you should be able to sign in if you're signing up for the Friday class. But just kind of wrap this up, okay? So the key to to build, the key that I'm pointing to here is to build awareness of your default reaction, okay? And then train to choose the optimal strategy instead. So the first thing that my students should be doing this week, right? If you're not one of my personal students, you can do whatever the hell you want. But my invitation is for you to reflect on what your natural response tendencies are, what your favorite fight style is, okay? Do you freeze under pressure? Do you get aggressive? Do you panic and flinch away? That kind of thing. If it's accidental, if it's intentional, what's your preferred fight method, right? And then, right, you choose to suspend that for a while because you don't need extra practice with it. You're already good with it. And then get really good at the other ones because we don't know which one we're going to need. We assess the situation and we choose the optimal scenario, right? Again, this one could be talking our way out, whatever, okay? So the more of these that we're good at, the more types of situations we can handle. To most people, type of situation equals, it's just a different guy I'm fighting, but it's the same fight. Okay? What I'm talking about is different things. Okay? Probably not the best idea to go charging into somebody who's waiting for you with a knife, or he's got a gun, or whatever. Probably the best thing to do is evade, or use a water kind of strategy where we're putting some distance between he and I, and I'm putting some friggin' hard stuff that will stop a bullet, or I'm doing this angled stuff, right? Broken field running is the way to run away from somebody who has a gun and might be trying to shoot you. Run a couple of steps in one angle, run a couple of steps in the other, right? Does that mean he can't shoot you? No, of course not. But you're not running in a straight line where he just goes bang. Or if he's throwing something at you, right? We do this thing in American football. It's called broken field running, right? It's just this, right? This zigzag pattern, and every once in a while you zig and then zig again. So he can't get a fixed shot. Okay, can't get a fixed shot. But again, since most people only think about having to deal with a fist fight or a grappling scenario or what they see in the dojo, they have to decide. Right? And it starts with, it's kind of like every other 12-step program, right? Do I ever believe I'm going to be in a situation different from all the other fights I've ever been in? And that goes to the people who like to argue too. Because just because nobody's punched in the face yet or pulled out a knife and decided they're going to stab you, and your death story is going to be on investigative discovery 10 years from now, right? You know, where they say, oh, everybody loved him and stuff. You know, his mouth gets him in trouble. He just ran into somebody who wasn't just going to blow it off or be intimidated, and they whacked his ass. Okay? So the problem is that ego likes to believe that whatever we have going on, remember that anchoring bias? That's all we need. Okay? From a ninjutsu standpoint, we need multiple strategies because we don't know what we're going to face. So unless your ESP is just fucking phenomenal, right? Since we don't know what the situation is going to look like, then we don't know what strategy we need. We don't know what tactics we're going to need. We don't know what techniques, tools. So we load up with as many as possible. That's why it was the original mixed martial art. Okay? So the point here, right? The central theme has been your ability to survive isn't just about what you know. It's about being able to control your mind and emotions under pressure based on what you don't know. Right? Another quote from Takamasa Sensei that we'll kind of wrap this up with is the body follows the mind. And if the mind is weak, the body will crumble. And weakness just isn't about somebody getting shaky. And in other classes, I've talked about a mental glitch or the brain locks up or whatever. In this case, what I'm talking about is the mind is not prepared for this kind of situation. Right? We didn't front load strategies and knowledge and stuff, right? So again, this reinforces why mental strength must be trained just as much as physical skills. Okay, so hopefully I'll see you for the class on Friday. Let me shift my screen here. The link, as always, is right down there in the lower corner, right? There you go. Okay. Again, you're going to need to give me, I don't know, 30 minutes, an hour, something like that, to make sure that the page is all set up and changed over. My day was really, really busy, and I didn't get to that yet. And then in another couple hours to a day or two, there will be a link in the description here, and I'll try to make sure it goes out in other places for the worksheet that I'm making up for folks that are diving into the Dai-Shihan Techie, where I'm outlining 5, 6, something like that, different applications of Zanshin, where this awareness goes, right? And then how to best apply it, okay? So it's not just something we've memorized. Oh, I've heard that before. It's purple, right? Okay. So anyway, unless you're completely turned off by the old fat bald guy, and because that's the assumption as to whether I know anything or not, if you want to, great. I've given you plenty to add to your training, right? Just applying the Kiyonako principle. Can you do every technique, regardless of the emotional state that's going on? Not regardless because you think you're just going to like cancel out this emotional overwhelm, but I mean being able to do it from that state, right? Left side and right side, right? And then is it a high punch, is it a low punch, is it a grab, is it a kick, right? Change out the attacks. That's what the Kiyonako principle is about, right? And if you're really doing Gyoko Ryu correctly, then there's 8 angles of attack, so I have to be able to execute my any given technique in 8 directions. I have to be able to vary it, right, based on adaptations that he's doing, right? And I also have to be able to beat it at least 8 different ways. Well, that punches people square in the ego where they believe that their techniques are unbeatable. No technique is unbeatable, right? Especially in today's world. There's a lot of people in the martial arts that are anti-gun, right? Because they believe that if we could just make them all go away, then they don't have to worry about guns, right? They can just rely on all this stuff that they got really, really good at. But the reality is the more laws you pass for things, history is rife with this stuff. The more laws you pass to restrict certain things, the more they become prevalent. They're illegal, right? It's just like during in the U.S. here, our period of prohibition, right? When we had that amendment passed and alcohol was outlawed, more people drank during prohibition than drank before or after it. Because nothing quite makes somebody do certain things other than telling them that they can't. So I understand the logic and I understand where it's coming from, but more often than not, it's coming from fear. I've got a lot of martial arts friends would like guns to just go away because they don't train to defend against things like that. It's too easy for somebody to erase you from existence from across the street. So instead of developing tactics or accepting the fact that you're not invincible, you can't survive everything, okay? They want to skew the game in their favor. That's just an ego thing, all right? Anyway, hopefully I'll see you for Friday's training. If not, there's always Kuden next week, and there's always next episode of Where's Whiteboard Wednesday. So I'm going to stop talking now, and I will talk to everybody again next time. Be safe, train hard, and have a good rest.